In this video, I will demonstrate how I paint the eyes on my grayscale portrait by using the basic guide along with my actual photograph to study the details of my actual eyes. This is a good quality photo, so I will lean more on my photo than on generic eye qualities. If the white charcoal transfer lines bother you, you can rinse them away and pat them dry. Before you start painting your eyes, make sure the outline drawing is correct. I'll start by using my guide steps and painting in the pupil black while also comparing what my pupil actually looks like in my photo. This is a good time to see if the pupil in your photo is maybe too big or too small and make adjustments accordingly. Next will be to shade the eyeball to look round. I'll use the knowledge of this step on the guide, but I'll also study my picture to get a true likeness of my eye. I'm going to need my base gray. If the gray in your cup starts to separate, use the back end of your paintbrush to mix it up, promptly rinsing and wiping off the handle of your brush. Take a little gray from your cup and put it on your palette. You'll want to rinse out your brush. You will only need a tiny amount of paint on your brush. The more paint you have on your brush, the harder it is to control. So continually rinse out your brush as you are mixing and picking up more paint. Now I'm simply wetting the surface with the base gray so that I can add in my darker values of the eye and blend them. Remember, I'm following the knowledge of the guide steps, but I'm studying my photograph very closely to try and imitate what I see. And I just can't say this enough. You don't need very much paint on your tiny paintbrush. You're working in a really small area, and the biggest mistake beginners make is they have way too much paint on the brush and then they make a big globby mess in the small area of the eye. So you see over on the right, I'm starting to make some gradual adjustments in darkening my paint. I'm noticing the right side of my sclera, the white part of my eye, is darker. The coracle in the inside corner of my eye is darker, so I'm trying to match the values that I see in my photograph. This is called making value judgments. You're constantly comparing and constantly trying to match the values and place them in the right spot. One thing I forgot to mention, and you might have noticed already, is that I fold my picture so that it's really close to where I'm working. So if I'm working on the right eye, I fold the picture to where I can scoot it right up next to the area where I'm working so I can more easily compare the two without having to move my eyes or my head back and forth. This just helps me to concentrate better on one small area. And I gave you all a plastic sheet cover to put your photo in. I took it out of mine. Those will become handy when we start to paint the skin, where we can actually use the picture as a grayscale finder, and I'll explain that more in that video. So here I'm going back to my guide steps, and I'm choosing to exaggerate what's happening in my iris. I want it to be more lifelike, more sparkly, without overdoing it, but I want to make sure I get the lower part of the iris a little bit lighter to imitate the light reflection. I didn't really see that in my photograph, but I know if I do this in my eye, it'll look more lifelike and more interesting. A lot of you have really dark brown eyes, and in your photo it's all going to look black. You barely see your pupil. So I highly recommend that you lighten your iris value to lighter than black, and then even go a little further and lighten the base of your iris to get that reflection in there. You'll also notice that I'm using my fingers a lot. I'm making small changes, and then I'll briefly just smudge it quickly with my finger. And this kind of helps it to all blend together and not really overdo it with my brush strokes. It's time for the last step on the guide steps, and this is where you really want to look at your photograph and really imitate the sparkles in the eyes, see what's happening in your photograph, and bring that last little touch of life to your eyes. Definitely don't be afraid to exaggerate those things if you can't really see them in your photograph. All right, I finished the right eye. Now I'll just put this on a time lapse and you can just watch me do the left eye. Thanks for watching and have fun painting.
Thank you.